Welcome to the next lecture where we're gonna see how to validate your requests. And it's actually super easy, as well as adding a JSON. Everything that you need to do is to go to POM.xml and add one more thing called dependency, of course, Quarkus Hibernate Validator, I think like this. Here we go with the IO Quarkus. So now we have a Quarkus Hibernate Validator. And as in previous case, we don't need to do any more configs. Everything is ready for us to use, right? So let's few more annotations to our class, right? So let's add a parameter called not blank, for example. You can see that we have Java X validation constraints. You can look at this package and you can see any different constraints that you can use in the email, decimal, meal, max, assert true, and like everything that you want to have, right? We don't have a non-blank, and then you can specify a message. So name shouldn't be blank, right? Like this. I think we should put a message as well. Message equals, right? Yeah. And the outer, let's use the same thing for the outer, and let's add one more thing called the, I don't know, long, for example. Actually, let's use integer pages, right? Number of pages, and it should be minimum. So okay, let's import the class, right? And then, so the value will be basically 1, right? So it should be minimum at least to 1. And the message, let's put a number of pages should be at least 1, like this, right? So we have, and of course we need to have a getters and setters as well. So another thing that we need to add to make it working is a valid annotation. And now if we post something and it won't work, we also need to restart our app in order to make it working. So we need to call the main Quarkus dev. It will reload some dependencies that wasn't loaded at the runtime. So in our case right now, you can see that we have more installed features than it was before. So we have a REST-easy JSON B, REST-easy of course, and Hibernate Validator. So now, if we go to our Postman and try to put the pages 0, in our case, you will see that we have a class validations, parameter validations actually. So in our case, constraint time parameter, message, number of pages should be at least 1, path, book pages. So in our case, it's book, called the, the object, and pages is the parameter in our case, and add book is the method that we use, our method, and the value is 0, right? So we also can do it with a -1 actually, so the same thing will be, and if we put a 1, you can see that it actually works fine, right? So that's the one way, the easiest one to make it working. Just put a valid there, and also we can like remove the, actually we can put a 0 here, and then I don't know, let's make it like null. I think it should work, maybe. Yeah, so we have name shouldn't be a blank, add book name, and then parameter number of pages should be at least 1. Okay, so that's pretty much it. One more thing that I want to show you actually is that you can inject validator. Validator. Yeah, I think it's this one. So now, instead of the adding valid, which is like, there might be a way, a moment when you want to check it actually. So now, validator, validate, and you just put a book here, and you'll return a set of constraint validations if there is some. So if, for example, our validations will be the size, right? If violation size will be more than 0, then you probably want to return a response with the status 400, for example, right? So that's the second option that you can use to validate your book, right, instead of annotation. And so you can see that we have a 400 request, or you can return it with the formatting if you want, but that's basically it. But I will suggest you to use, of course, the valid option here, and you can get rid of more lines of code than you probably need to have, right? This is the most convenient way to do it, basically, right? So now you can see that we have all the information for constraints, which is pretty easy and useful, right? So you can also make it as you can create a new service. For example, if we add a book service, right, and make it application scoped, and then add I don't know, public maybe book check book as well, book, and we just add the validate here, right? Valid actually, and return the book. Something you can do some logic here. I just don't want to take a time to make it work, and you probably don't want to use a validate here for some reason, right? And then you just inject. Let's remove the validator as well. Let's inject our book service, and we just can do it like this: book service check book. So here, if the book is not correct, it should give us an invalid response. So let's go do a post, and you can see that we have a two constraints violation occurring method. In our case, of course, because the exception goes beyond, it will be not as let's say as beautiful as you want it to be, because it goes from the on the initial error, but you can still see the what's going on basically, right? And that's useful as well if you need to have it like this, right? So yeah, that's it. So you can also as you saw use the valid option outside of the resource object. You can use it in resource, or you can inject a validator, which you can just call a validate method, and you can validate any object that you have with specific constraints, which is really super helpful. In some other frameworks, you do it the other way. You get a property from the request, and then you have for each property you have specific constraints, where in Java you don't do anything like this. You just add an annotation to the data object. So for example, not blank or minimum, maximum, everything that you need, and you save pretty much a lot of space and logic, right? So you don't waste your time thinking about where to implement it, what objects to call, what methods to call, right? You just put the annotation valid before on the request body. You put annotations in a data class, and you're ready to go. Of course, you have to not forget the libraries as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next lecture.